Chapter 8. Thor loves camping and cookies. Todd held Thor tenderly in his arms. His cat wasn't like other cats. He won't run away, Dad. He's not scared. But he opened the door, stepped inside, and tossed Thor on the high bed. The fawn-colored cat settled down in the quilts, gave himself a quick bath, and fell asleep. Ready to go swimming? Dad asked. Get your swimming suits on, and we'll walk over to the lake. 10 minutes later, Todd stuck a big toe into the lake. It felt like ice. That's too cold, he said. He forced himself to go out until the water covered his knees. Then he stopped. You may as well forget it, Molly, he called back to shore. You could never handle this cold. As he finished talking, a small form rushed past him, and Molly splashed headlong into the water beside him. She came up screaming and laughing and splashing Todd. Stop! Todd yelled, running back to the shore. What was the matter with that kid? Couldn't she feel the ice in the water? Dad managed to ease out until the small waves lapped at his hips. Molly splashed him too, and then dove into the water, swimming away from him as fast as she could. Todd crouched at the edge of the water, trying to get warm as he watched Dad and his little sister. I'm going back to the trailer, he called, rising to a standing position. As he turned to leave the lake, he saw Thor racing toward him. How did that cat get out of the trailer anyway? Thor stopped a few feet from the edge of the lake. Looking across the water at Dad and Molly, Todd watched him move to the water and carefully dip one paw into the icy foam at the edge. He jerked it back as if he had been burned. Standing in the same spot, he licked the dry foot and then bounded over to Todd and into his arms. At least we think alike, don't we? Todd asked his pet and as he carried him back to the trailer. He found Mom searching for Thor. I'm so glad you found him, she said in an excited voice. I knew for sure he was gone forever this time. Todd grinned. Don't worry about Thor anymore, Mom. He only came to find us. Todd wasn't sure that God answers prayers by sending stowaways, but just in case, he thanked his heavenly Father for answering his prayer to bring Thor camping. After that, Thor ran through the campground to suit himself. He even rode on the bow of the rowboat the family rented to explore the lake and surrounding area. On the last night of their trip, the family had worshiped and prepared for bed. But Todd couldn't find Thor. I know he's all right, he said, but I'm tired. Sometimes he's a little too independent for me. Dad didn't reply, but seemed to be examining the inside of the trailer. He's not in here, Todd said. I've looked everywhere in the trailer. There aren't many places to hide. Todd, Dad chuckled. I wasn't looking for Thor, Todd. I was looking for a place where we could cut a door in the trailer, a Thor door. He pointed to a place at the bottom of the wall. That seems to be about the only place we could make it. Thor came in about an hour later, and Todd finally got to bed. A few days after they returned home, Dad carefully cut a small hole in the side of the trailer and hung a little swinging door in the space. Thor didn't wait for the next camping trip, but immediately started going in and out as he chose. A few nights later, Todd couldn't find Thor at bedtime. I know where he is, Molly yelled. He's in the trailer waiting to go camping. I'll go check, Todd said, feeling certain Molly was right. But Thor wasn't in the trailer. Todd clomped back to the house feeling discouraged. Molly had gone to bed. Mom and Dad had divided up the newspaper and quietly read in the living room. The house felt as silent as the church. Todd decided to get a drink of milk and then go to bed. If Thor wanted to spend the night outdoors, who cared? The nights were warm now. Todd took his milk to the breakfast bar and sipped it slowly. He had to smile as he thought about his pet. He knew the cat still considered him its mother, but sometimes it acted like a spoiled brat. Slowly, a tiny sound registered on Todd's brain. He could barely hear the fascinating sounds, but he moved toward it, forgetting all about Thor. As he moved toward the end of the kitchen, the sound became ever so slightly louder. He stopped and listened again. It sounded like chewing and seemed to be coming from the cabinet over the stove. Todd noticed the cabinet door over the stove stood ajar. They had never had a mouse in the house, but the noise certainly sounded like chewing. Todd wanted to open the cupboard, but somehow he felt afraid. What would he do if a mouse jumped out? He knew he couldn't hurt one of the little creatures, but would one hurt him? Todd stood in the silent kitchen listening to the tiny chewing sounds. Something alive was definitely making those sounds. Maybe he should get Dad. No, he wasn't some kind of baby. He would just step over to that door and open it. If something wanted to escape, he would open the sliding glass door and let it outside. With that decision made, he reached up to the cabinet door, but he didn't open it. He stepped back and listened to the chewing, which definitely came from inside that door. And in the quiet, it almost sounded crunchy. Todd squared his shoulders and reached for the door. He would open it quickly before he had a chance to change his mind. Touched the handle and gently pulled the door open. But he didn't find a little animal. A big animal sat in the cupboard with its black face in a cookie bag. The crunching suddenly sounded so loud in the silent room that Todd felt sure Mom and Dad would hear and come running. Thor, Todd whispered, what are you doing in those cookies? The cat pulled his head from the bag, looked down at Todd, and said mew as softly as a little kitten. Todd laughed out loud. I'm coming. It sounded like Thor had said. Can't you just wait until I finish my bedtime snack? Todd snatched Thor from the cupboard, cookie bag and all, and set them outside on the patio. Then he washed his hands, ran some water into the sink, poured in a little dishwashing soap, and thoroughly washed the cabinet Thor had been in and the countertops below. He would have to watch that bad cat and keep him out of there. Dad wouldn't think it was all that much better to have cats in the cupboards than mice.